Welcome back to part 3 of our discussion on immigration. And so far, this has been a discussion filled with unpleasant surprises and negative consequences for you and your family. And one of those unpleasant surprises, our government's worker visa plan. Now in part 1, I commented that there are valid circumstances where it is necessary for foreign workers to come here to work. But we have 5 million foreign workers and their families that come to our country every year to work. So it's hard to believe, at least it is for me, that a lot of this work can't be done by Americans. Oddly, these millions of worker visa admissions, they don't even count as immigrants. They aren't included as part of the million immigrants that we receive every year. Instead, they're classified as non-immigrants and only considered temporary, even though they're here for up to 6 years. When we talk about people here on work visas, just like when we talked about legal immigrants, don't blame them for coming here to work to make a better life for themselves and their family. Actually, when you think about it, these are people that have traveled across the world to work. That's a trait we should all admire. And contrast that to some of the people in our own country. They won't even travel across the street to work. Instead, blame our government and their endless list of failed policies. Between an education system that fails to teach the skills that our citizens need, and welfare and disability programs that make it too easy for people to not fully participate or not participate at all in the workforce, our government's created the conditions where we do need more workers. And they made it easy to import workers from across the world rather than to train and utilize workers from our own country. Now, in spite of the fact that some of these foreign worker programs have been in place for over 70 years, our government's effort to fix this shortfall of skills with American workers or to undo the failed policies that have created this shortfall has been so dismal that the number of foreign workers required gets bigger every year rather than smaller. And I mean a lot bigger. In 1985, there were 310,000 foreigners here on work visa. By 2002, this number had grown fourfold and had ballooned to 1.4 million workers and their families. And by 2023, almost another fourfold increase. Now there are 4.9 million foreign workers and their family members here on work visas. This means that the number of jobs filled with foreign workers has grown by 4 million since 1985. This program's seen a 16-fold increase. That's a 1,500% increase. Yet our government still refuses to invest enough of our tax money in America and in our educational programs to train American workers to fill the gaps in our skill set. Instead, they spend our money on a giant bureaucracy to import millions of foreign workers and their families into our country each year so they can fill these jobs. Did you know that there were 4.2 million open jobs in our country every year that can't be filled by Americans? I didn't think so. But somehow the rest of the world knows about these jobs. Our government, with your tax money, expends a large effort and expenditure to justify why we need these foreign workers and to let the rest of the world know about these jobs. But not much effort or expense to let us know or develop people in our country for these jobs. The bottom line, our government's policies have helped to create over 4 million jobs since 1985 for foreign workers. But let's see if their policies had a similar effect on American jobs since 1985, specifically manufacturing. Oh, our government's policies didn't create any manufacturing jobs, not even one. No 1,500% increase here. Rather, during the same time, it caused us to lose 5 million American jobs. That's a 28% decrease in our manufacturing jobs. So our government's American worker last policies, just since 85, has created 4 million new jobs in our country that our government claims only workers from other countries can do, while selling off 5 million jobs of the work that we know we can do. And don't be fooled that the jobs that are held by people here on work visa are all entry-level jobs like that Americans won't do, because they aren't. There's a program in place, regardless of what your job is, to replace you. These programs bring every kind of foreign worker here. You think your job is safe as an engineer or a doctor professor, lawyer, or some other professional position? Wrong. The H-1 visa program specifically targets replacing our technical and professional workers with foreign workers. In 1985, there were 47,000 H-1B visa workers here. But in 2023, our government imported 755,000 people here on H-1 visas. That's 700,000 additional workers, white-collar workers that have been replaced with foreign workers. And even though the legal limit for foreign workers here on H-1B visa is already ridiculously high at 510,000 workers per year, because our government can grant 85,000 new visas each year, and each one's good for 6 years. That's how we get the 500,010 white-collar workers replaced. But that wasn't enough. They created a whole list of exceptions that don't count towards the limit. And that's how we end up with 755,000 foreign workers here on H-1 visa instead of the 510. When you do the math, they created 250,000 exceptions. And that's why so many of our college professors are foreign. University positions like college professors are one of those exceptions that don't count towards the limit. So universities that are funded with our tax money can bypass our children for these good paying professor jobs and employ an unlimited number of foreign professors, and they don't even count towards the 510,000 limit. But nonprofit research organizations and government-funded research organizations can also hire as many foreign workers as they want. That doesn't count towards the limit either. Disgraceful. But technical and professional jobs are just the tip of the iceberg. H-2 visa workers include agriculture workers and other more entry-level type jobs. In 1985, there were only 36,000 of these H-2 visa workers here. Now, there's 893,000 foreign workers here on H-2 visa. Over 700,000 on H-2A, almost 200,000 on H-2B. Between the two classes, just shy of 900,000 more American workers replaced since 1985. Then there are classes of work visas you probably never even heard of, like NAFTA professional workers. It's hard to believe you've never heard of this group either, because there are 1.2 million people that work in our country as NAFTA professional workers to ensure we can efficiently ship as many of our jobs to Mexico and Canada as possible. Remember, NAFTA was only signed into law in 1992, and this program has created over 1 million jobs for foreign workers in our country since that time to help import goods while helping to export millions of our manufacturing jobs across the border. Another big group, treaty traders and investors. There are 555,000 foreign workers here whose job is defined as a treaty trader, their investors, and their families. This number has gone up by 400,000 workers since 1985. Treaty traders are here on E-1 work visas. They help facilitate the importing of foreign goods. So your next job, if you can get one, can be working for minimum wage selling these foreign goods at the corner store. Basically, they're just a part of our government's American Worker Last Treaty programs that give special concessions to foreign countries' manufacturing at the expense of our workers. These treaty traders, combined with our government's other American Worker Last policies, have helped to ensure the loss of millions of American jobs and has led to our almost $1 trillion trade deficit. Now, one of the sad ironies of our times is that several American companies that got rich from the patronage of the American consumer, they decided not to invest that money back into America and our workers, and instead chose to invest that money in foreign countries with cheap labor and then to import the goods that our workers used to make back here. Unfortunately, at the same time, several foreign companies have come to the aid of the American worker by investing in our jobs and futures by building manufacturing plants here. And thank God that they have, because who knows how many American manufacturing jobs would have been lost without them. And this investment's been aided by the increase of people here as investors. Investors are here as part of the E-2 visa program. So there has been a small silver lining. But since we lost almost 5 million manufacturing jobs during this period, the negative impact of all these treaty traders seems to have far outweighed the positive impact of any investment. When there is foreign investment, though, this investment in our country often requires people from the parent company to come here to help manage and oversee that investment. And that creates the need for another type of work visa, the L1 visa, the intercompany transfer. Today there are 503,000 people here as intercompany transfers among multinational companies with offices or manufacturing in our country. And this investment is often a good thing when it leads to American jobs, but that's not always the case. So I think it warrants a harder look to see if all of these 500,000 jobs, or some of them, can be filled by American workers instead. There are even 165,000 foreign workers in our country that are here because our government defines them as workers with extraordinary skills. And this number also includes their assistants. Now we should have guessed that these are called O1 visas, O for outstanding. But don't even ask how you get defined as an extraordinary or outstanding worker in America. Just know that our government doesn't think you're one of them. There are countless other smaller groups also that help add up to this 5 million total, and then some have some validity. Foreign media and their families, 32,000. And ironically, little change in this group since 2002. Artists, athletes, and entertainers bring another 142,000 people here. Religious workers, 13,000. And since all the people issued work visas can bring their families, there are another 700,000 family members of these foreign workers that are here also. Like I said, there's a worker visa program in place to replace every type of American worker. And I didn't even cover all the different programs. Now what's amazing to me is that the average American working hard to get by every week doesn't even know that our government's been investing their tax money to create over 4 million jobs that they claim only foreign workers can do. But also with your tax money to advertise this work around the world while building a giant bureaucracy to bring all these workers here to replace you, rather than develop American workers. Millions who work hard but aren't even able to find good enough jobs that they have to rely on some type of welfare program to get by. The worker visa program has displaced millions of Americans from jobs in their own country, and it's helped to create access to our markets that's led to the exporting of millions of our jobs, while at the same time importing the foreign goods that our workers used to make. Now, how did this failure go on for so long without us even knowing it? Well, like so many other failures, it's only been made possible by listening to what this guy tells you every night on the news and by wasting your vote for 60 straight years on his candidates. The candidates from both parties that tell you what you want to hear, but in reality, they do the exact opposite. And I've continued to prove this as we've covered each article. And in spite of this immigration failure and all the others due to their poor leadership, we keep voting for them, expecting the outcome to be different. Now remember how Charlie Brown, he kept trying to kick the football, but each time he tried, Lucy would pull the football out of the way and Charlie Brown would miss it and fall down? But no matter how many times that happened, Charlie Brown was ready to kick it again the next time. And we're in the same position as Charlie Brown. We keep falling for the same trick every election cycle too. Don't be like Charlie Brown anymore. Now let's stop here for today. Next time when we meet in part 4, we'll get into the details of which government programs allow us to bring 1 million immigrants into our country each year. Some of the ways may surprise you. Also, we'll take a deeper look at how immigration was affected during the COVID pandemic. You were shut down during COVID. But was immigration? Was stopping the spread that important? We'll find out when we meet next.